In this video, we are going to do a little bit of work on these last two details. There are concrete masonry unit piers in the middle here, and we're basically going to be adding details similar to what is shown in this detail down here, but slightly different type of block will be used. Now, the detail that we're going to use is going to look something like what you see here. So in this case, we have a pier, same nominal size that is located in your projects. We have a 16-inch CMU block. Let me change my spotlight here. That's running kind of in a landscape orientation. And what's going to happen is they're going to alternate as the column goes up. So it will be in this orientation, and the next course will be in a sort of portrait orientation. There will be reinforcing located in the corners and another component of reinforcing that wraps around them. All right, so I'm going to go back to the Revit file, and we will start with the plan view down here. So let me change my pointer here. Okay, we will add these in this, but I'm going to go to the actual detail. So it should be masonry call out number 1. Okay, now there are all different shapes of concrete block. And in a case like this, similar to, I'll just go to this call out number 2, I'll reference it. We made some changes to this one because it's located in the corner and you want a smooth surface on 2 sides. Well, for this one, we want a smooth surface on 3 sides. So for this plan view, I will be using this portion right here as my area for creating the block. What I'm going to do is bring in a block to use as a kind of template. So I'm going to annotate. I already brought this block in to components, and I'm going to look for my concrete block that I brought in previously. So this one right here, and I'll just place it. I don't want a section. I want a top view. So there's the top view. All right, and I'm just going to use this for the dimensions that it's giving me. All right, I'm going to go to the region tool. And actually, maybe it would be best to put this in its position first. I'll move this from here. Okay, now, I'm going to move it again so that it's centered. So I need to move it over 3/16 of an inch. And I need to move it down 3/16 of an inch. Okay, so that will give me a 3/8 inch joint in between these 2 units. Right now, I'm going to go to the region tool, and I'm going to look for the crosshatch pattern. I believe it's diagonal crosshatch transparent. And oops, I want to use a rectangle. And I will just trace that and click on the check mark. Okay. Now, when I delete this one, you can see there it is here. Before you do that, though, let's take that and let's move it just temporarily over here so you can see. All right. One thing that you'll need to do after you kind of get it blocked in is to add the lines around it. It looks like what I did is I left the lines as invisible. So we're going to need to include those. Okay, so I have the block I was using as a template back in place, and now what I'm going to do is just begin to make a few kind of guidelines that I can use to trace. And I'm going to click on this one and I'm going to move it over. Let's try 1.25 inches. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. I'll draw a line. Well, I can mirror it, so maybe I'll just do one. Okay, I'm going to make another guideline here and here, and then I can erase these later. And let's make one more. Okay, so I'll basically be making a core in this area right here. So I'm going to go back to the region tool. And I've got it, you know, I think when I made that original block, I had it set to thin line, so it should have a perimeter. I'm going to click on the rectangle tool. I'm going to look for one that's called solid white. I'm going to, again, this make sure this says thin lines, and I've got rectangle set. I'm going to click on radius, and then I will go ahead and construct this rectangle there. Okay, and click on the check mark. All right, now I should have one drawn there, and maybe it's just not visible because I have this block on top of it. I'm going to delete it. And there's the new region, and I'll just start erasing some of these guidelines. I don't need them anymore. So I've got this, and I'm going to mirror it about my column there. Okay, so there is the concrete block. Maybe it would be a good idea to create a detail group, create a group. I'm going to call this CMU at column, group type detail, say okay. And let's see if I can add pieces to it. Yes, finish. Okay, so now it's a component, and I can take it and I can mirror it. But before I mirror it, I think I'll add the reinforcing that I'm going to need in there. And I'm also going to edit the group because I want these not to be solid white. I want them to be filled with grout. Click on that. Grout. Okay. Finish. So it's kind of handy about those that you can kind of edit them. And I suppose I can add the rebar to that group, or I could just bring one in. So I'm going to reference the detail that we were looking at. So in this detail, these reinforcing members are not called out. Number 3 ties are wrapping around. We have 8-inch CMU, 2-inch clearance to ties, and we'll add some of these notes. I think we'll make these number 6s as we've used previously. Okay, so I'm going to go back to annotate component, and I'm going to look for a 6-inch rebar, or a number 6 rebar rather. And keep in mind that would be a 3/4 inch diameter. It's probably towards the bottom. It is. Number 6. And I'm going to place them, first I'll put it in the corner here. And then I'll move them. Click on it. Oops. Move. And let's put it in 3 inches. And move it up 3 inches. Okay, and then I can mirror it. And I can also mirror the whole group. So I'll hold down the group plus the rebar, hold down the control key, mirror, like so. Okay. And then the last part of the detail itself would be to draw something representing reinforcing that's wrapping around the entire group. Okay, I'm going to now draw in that reinforcing that wraps around the vertical reinforcing. What I'll do is I'll start with making some guidelines for myself. From these corners. And I'm going to move them in from the edge 2.5 inches. I'll move this one here in, same thing, and I'll go around the whole group and move them in so I have something to snap to. Okay, now I'm ready to actually draw the line that will become the rebar. I'm going to use a rectangle tool. I'm going to set the radius. We'll try 3/8 of an inch. I think that should be fine. And that's it. Now I can come in and erase these guidelines. Okay, now you'll notice in the detail, I'm going to go to the detail I was referencing, that there is a couple little lines that appear here and here. That is, basically this rebar comes here and wraps around, and then it kind of comes in here, and this is the end of the rebar. So we can create a line that sort of illustrates that part of the detail. So I'm going to draw a detail line, start drawing it from the center here. Doesn't really matter how long it is. You're just, again, this is one of those things that's just for illustrative purposes. And I'm going to move it. Again, move maybe over 0.5 inches. So again, it's just really to kind of suggest. If you're not getting these dimensions perfect, it's okay. Like that. I'm just trying to make it look roughly symmetrical. Fair enough. Okay. So when you back out, it's going to look something like that. And basically, that's all the detail that we need for this part. Now, one thing I would ask that you do is, we're seeing the pier that was drawn at the smaller scale, and we don't really need to see that. So I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to hide it in the view. Okay. Now the other line that we're seeing here is from the metal furring. And that will be something that we need to actually add to this detail, and that should go pretty quick because we've already got those components in here. So we have a 2.5 inch space here. So in this case, we will be bringing in the studs. So we have channel studs 2.5 inches. Actually, that's the runner. Let's go back and let's bring in lost those details. Let me, oh, there we go. Interior metal studs is what we're looking for. So how is this going to frame out? They always do it a little bit differently, but you can suggest something that might work. Got one here, and I'm going to make a copy. And this one, I need to rotate it. I need to move it from here to here. Okay, and I can mirror both of those. So hold down the control. And use the mirror tool. Pick that column line. Let's try that again. What happened? Right now, they may need a center one. So it depends on the spacing. If we have more than 16 inches in here, no, we're good. I think that's fine. Okay, so I'm going to mirror those 4 now on the upper part. So I will select all of them. Okay, and that will take care of this detail. Now, one thing that you'll notice is that we're seeing these lines of the floor pattern below, and they're too heavy, and so they're kind of drawing attention to them. So I'm going to actually take those and I'm going to hide them in the view. I want to make sure I just hide the elements. Shouldn't really matter for this view, but okay, so that's what we'll see. We'll just see the drywall wrapping around the column. And this right here is the pier below, and I think that's okay to see. There's a little bit less detail. No, I'm wrong about that. That's actually the footing, and we don't want to see the footing if we can't see the slab. So we're going to also turn that one off. Okay, so what we will see though is we'll add some notes that talk about this. Okay, so I'm going to start adding some of the notes. I'm looking right now at the one at the southwest corner. Just wanted to get an idea, like where did I start this text here relative to the column line? About 14 or 16 to 17 inches. Now I'm going to go back to call out number 1, and I'll try to, get somewhere close to that, just so it looks like those text notes align. I'm going to move that line I just made. $17 inches. Okay. And then I'll start to use that as my guide for creating the text. Okay. I'm going to go to annotate, and I'll use the text tool here. I'm going to, let's see here. I've got 4 notes. I'll start with the CMU, 8-inch CMU, all caps, fully grouted in alternating courses. And let's bring this back to align with the crop line and click on it and add a leader. It was here. Okay, next text component will be number 6. Wait, it's really all kinds of challenges in typing in number 6. Rebar full height of masonry column. Save my file. All right, so let's bring this to this point and pull this back a little bit. Copy. Number 3 ties and at 16 inches on center. And we'll point to those components. And our last one will just be simply to reference the enclosure. I'm going to call this a gypsum wallboard enclosure or column enclosure. And I can erase my guideline. Okay, so that's it for that detail. And now what we'll do is we will copy what you see here to the reflected ceiling plan detail. So I'm just going to make a window around everything there. Control C. And I'll go down to my ceiling plans, masonry call out number 1. And I will paste that in place. Oops. Perfect. Now, right over walls overlap. Let's just say okay. So what do I need to get rid of? I've got extra walls in here that I shouldn't have brought with me. I'm just going to go around and delete them. Let's just make sure that when you go to call out number 1, everything remained there. Okay. Going back to my reflected ceiling plan, call out. Okay, now let's show these 2 blocks as rotated. Everything else can stay the same. These studs will go continuously up and they wouldn't rotate, but since we have these alternating courses of block, I'm going to select both of them, use the rotate tool, and I'll pick a point here and a point here. Oh, almost. Do that again. You want to make sure you keep them at 90 degrees. And that's how those ones will look. All right, I'm going to go back to my sheet, take a look. And you can see we've got blocks in the portrait orientation on this detail and in landscape orientation in that one. So one thing I noticed is that somehow the ribs of my waffle slab got moved around a little bit. So I'm going to make those corrections so they appear symmetrical in the reflected ceiling plan. So when I click on them, they're pinned, and I'm going to move them a little bit. I think that they're 3/8 of an inch off. Okay, so that one is centered now. And this one, probably all of them now have somehow this 3/8 of an inch offset. Again, they're not going to appear anywhere except in that detail. So you can use your judgment about, repairing them, but we're looking for a symmetrical relationship all the way around. So I think I'm going to move them just 3/8 of an inch, those that would appear in my detail. Okay, so they should have the same relationship at the corners of this. And you can go around and check yours too. Okay. Okay, I think I've got them all corrected now. And I'm going to go back to my detail. Masonry call out number 1. And I'm just going to call out a couple of things in this detail. All of this stuff was called out in the plan, so I don't need to do that. I'm just going to call out these ribs and the thickened slab at the column perimeter. So I'll create another detail line here so I can keep my text in the same relationship. I'm going to move that over. I think I had 17 inches. And I'll use that. So for the text, I'm going to click right here. And I'm going to type in waffle slab rib. And I'll drag this so it's not overlapping any line work. And then I'll click on it and add a leader. And then I'll copy that note down to the bottom here. And I'm going to say thickened slab at column perimeter. And point there. And I'll erase my guideline. I'm going to go back to the sheet and kind of finish up a few things that need to be done here. I'm going to clarify the titles. One thing you should do is just check to make sure that the title lines are aligning across the way. Okay, so changes to make to the titles. Now, these titles were kind of named this way to make it easier to sort of find them in the project browser. But on the sheet itself, we don't need to have all of that listed. So it's always a little bit challenging to get into the editing mode of these titles. We are going to double click on the detail. Okay, so to change the title, I've selected it, and then I've come over here to where it says title on sheet. We're just going to call this wall section. And just to be consistent, I'll keep the titles all in caps. Okay, so it's not going to change the view name because I still want to be able to find it in that list. So when I go to my sections, it should still appear masonry wall section, but on the sheet itself, I don't need that level of detail. Okay, and for this one, I'm going to call this one, I keep wanting to double click, but I don't need to do that. going to deselect. I'm just going to select the detail and then find where it says title on sheet. And we're going to call this section cap, section at column, and apply. Okay. And I'll keep going around and making these changes. This one at the bottom here is going to be, so click on that once, scroll down to where it says title on sheet. This one will be plan detail at southwest corner. Type in here, plan detail at SW, or you could spell it out, corner, apply. This one here is going to be plan detail at column. And the last one here will be RCP. Remember, RCP stands for reflected ceiling plan detail at column, apply. Right, and that will do it for this masonry sheet. Just going to erase that guideline that I had on my plan detail. Oh, it's erased. Oh no, the call out number 1. There we go. Delete. Go back to my sheet. Just take one last quick look at it. Okay. And if you feel like you need to kind of shift things around to make room, these are all the details for this one. So you could always kind of move these cropped areas around or give more space between the title and the cropped portion of the view.